Yo, what up? So I hit this like very hilarious round number here. I don't know if it was programmed into the game to hit that or just dumb luck, but so I got to 10,000 MMR. It was a goal of mine before the season end to get there, and we got literally right to it. And I thought it'd be a good time to like review the stats on how I got there, and also just my thoughts on Archdemons. I'll probably only really give major thoughts on the ones that I happen to play a lot, because the thing I'm willing to concede on the ones I didn't play a lot is that they might be good. I just simply never really learned them that well, right? So I'll probably only comment on the ones that I've played maybe 10 or more games with. But anyway, yeah, so we're about at a 51% win rate. Granted, not to make excuses for myself, there were several games where my stupid ISP literally just cut me out within the first few minutes of a game, but that's only like between 5 and 10 games accounted for here. But for the most part, able to get barely over a 50% win rate and a top 4 of 92%. Both of those are nothing special, I would say, in terms of like, they're not the top, right? Like there's definitely players with higher rates. I just simply grinded the most right now at a decent rate, shall we say. But anyway, let's get into the thing I'm more interested in here is just what I thought about the heroes that I played a significant amount. I guess Batabat kind of almost scratches the surface. I guess it is 10, or that's 7 games. So yeah, we'll say 10 or more games, because I don't really have much to say about Batabat. I think it's like okay. But Bosferatu, this is a Archdemon that really grew on me. I didn't actually play him at all when the first like portion of the game released, because I just assumed, like, I didn't even really like him that much in the beta. Like a lot of people had him as S tier in the beta, but I never really got him. Then they nerfed him, supposedly nerfed him. I started to realize I think it's a buff. I think so. What I used to do is 3 cost units or higher you could sell for a 1/1 buff, so 1 to attack and health. So you could make some pretty giant boards, but it costed a lot more to get there. I think the thing I really like about the latest iteration of Bosferatu is that there's no limit on the cost of the unit. So like you can buy anything. You can even buy better than nothing and sell it back, and you're going to get 1 attack to your entire board. And it turns out, just if you pick the right units, range units, resummoning units, etc., it doesn't really matter that much that you're not getting the health, and you're getting such cheap attack scaling that you can just be strong at all points of the game, and you don't even have to hit on any particular artifacts. And really, I did say range units and resummoning units are preferred, but even if somehow you miss on everything, you're still going to have a board that has good stats. And that's like guaranteeing you more or less a top 4. But, even the win rate here is really high, right? 17 wins out of 24 played. I know specifically there was 1 win that was robbed from me by a disconnect, so it should even be higher by at least 1. But, yeah, I think Bosferatu is very top tier. When I think, I won't be obviously be playing in this tournament, but when I think to like, things that I would absolutely want in the tournament, Bosferatu is definitely there. Like, yeah, I think it'd be very hard to get a bottom 4 with Bosferatu, even in the most strong lobby. I think you're just guaranteed to have both a good top 4 rate and a good win rate. Bullhead, I like Bullhead. I think Bullhead is fun. I particularly would shy away though if Demon or Atlantean is banned. It's still takeable. Like you basically think of it as like I just get 2 attack to all my units, right? But there's a pretty big high roll early on for tempo with the Hellhound, and obviously then on the other side of the spectrum there's the late game Hydrex. I will say Hellhound's very likely to be pulled off. The Hydrex I guess is less likely. You still need to be getting counters. I pulled it off like once or twice, I think. I know at least once, but like I would say most of the times I went for Hydrex Bullhead, it didn't really pan out. But certainly I think if Demon is open, Bullhead is a strong pick. Then Crawley was at least victim to one disconnect I know of, but I think Crawley's very good. It's like a very good hero, kind of across the board. Archdemon. I keep calling them heroes. It's going to be a hard habit to break, but Crawley just it's like it gives you everything. Like, it gives you tempo. You're bound to get at least one Forgotten Armor, and hopefully a few of them. So you just get free +3 health to random units here and there early, and then, you know, your free manas are more powerful. Your better than nothing is basically like a free mana. So like, you have early game tempo, but then it just keeps providing value, right? Especially if Atlantean is open, you can get the Serpentina easily scaled up. You can also get, if Eldritch is open, Mind Sapper's a good target for just spam, even just little spells on. Like, that's still a lot of stats, even if it's not upgraded. So Crawley's just quite good. I do think, though, that winning is not necessarily super easy. Like, it is, to me, much more of a tempo Archdemon than an actual, like, endgame Archdemon, unless you have the Serpentina Hydrax combo, right? Or even, you don't need the Hydrax. If you have Serpentina with a Bucky or some race summons in front of her and a lot of stats, that also is very good, right? Serpentina, it turns out, is just a very good unit. I used to think she sucked after the ranged nerf, but she's actually, as long as you can justify spamming spells, she's incredibly good. By the way, on that note, I played around with Serpentina and Bosferatu, and I think Serpentina is at her worst with Bosferatu. I would recommend shying away from trying to use Serpentina on Bosferatu unless you high rolled into a very strong artifact package for it. You know, all the ritual related artifacts. Because the thing is, you're going to be spending mana scaling your board with Bosferatu. It's hard to justify spending mana on rituals and units. You're basically never going to combine a unit at that point. So that's something to think about with Bosferatu versus something like a Crowley with Serpentina. Now, Demonstra is a very interesting one. This was probably my strongest Archdemon in the game prior to the Demon nerf. You know, it used to be that you could get a Hellfire Cannon at the 5 cost, so level 4 and beyond. And then Red Beast, alternatively, was your 6 cost unit, but it had much better scaling. So, like, really, especially if Coven is banned, I kind of make a joke, but I think it's true. Like, right now, I think Babam is the best demon. The thing with Babam is you can put Fire Slingers in front of them, and you know, beyond the normal scaling you can get on the Fire Slinger from an Imp Lord, from the shot, you know, the extra damage on the shot. If that Fire Slinger does die and the Babam applies its extra damage, it actually, I don't know if many people realize this, but it actually still scales the Fire Slinger in that case with the finale. So you can get a lot of scaling on your Fire Slingers in front of a Babam. And then obviously there's the Red Beast as well that scales really well from the Babam. And so if Coven is banned, I just would not pick Demonstra. I've played around with it. I think, like, she just really, in any lobby worth their salt, which these tournament lobbies are going to be, I would not pick Demonstra unless Coven is available. And even then, I don't think she's top tier. She still has one of the strongest end games in the world, but, like, you'll notice, you know, I had 3 games that were bottom 4, and those are all post-nerf, and none of them were disconnects. Those were legitimate bottom 4s, and even some of the top 4s that I had were barely top 4s. There were, like, ones where I'm like in the running to get 5th, and I die, and I just have a little bit more HP than the other guy that died, right? I really don't think she's incredible anymore. And then Eyes, similarly, I didn't play much Eyes after the Demon nerf. I think Eyes is still probably fine, but I don't particularly like to play the Archdemons. I think I got to a point in the game where I'm mainly running suit builds. I do think that they're generally the most fun, and I think the strongest generally. And you just have a tough time doing that with Eyes to justify playing Eyes. Like, if you play Eyes, you might as well force demons, and sometimes you just don't find them, and you don't do well. But for what it's worth, I top 4'd everything with Eyes. But I just don't particularly enjoy playing Eyes. I think Eyes is okay, though. I would definitely, in the tournament, between the two, I would always pick Eyes. Like if I was playing in this tournament, and they were right next to each other, I would never pick Demonstra over Eyes. Gordo, I'm not sold on it, to be honest. Obviously, similar to Demonstra, if you make it to the end game, you're going to be very strong and probably win. But that's the problem. Can you make it to the end game? I have had the unfortunate displeasure of a lot of times when I pick Gordo getting like a legit lobby. There's different degrees, right? Sometimes you just get a bot lobby. Sometimes you get a full lobby, but the players aren't that experienced. With Gordo, I had, the chance to actually see some lobbies that were full of very good players. And I don't think Gordo is that good in those situations. I bottom forward in both of those cases. You have an anti-hero power unless you high roll a Mana Guardian early. And, maybe you can get an Earth Elemental at level 3, but all things considered, it's very hard to actually survive a strong tempo lobby with Gordo. It's kind of Mana Guardian or bust, and if you just won't get to the end game, unfortunately. So I predict that even though Gordo had quite a good win rate for most players, I think that's a heavy skewing because the lobbies just aren't on average that strong. When you have all Grandmastery players, eight people lobbies, I don't think Gordo's going to be that strong. Still though, won't be weak, right? It still has that chance to make it to the end game and basically guarantee a victory. Just because you can get there's so many large 6 costs and 7 costs that it's so easy to get those treasures later on. And just having them upgraded is good, right? An upgraded Bastation is literally double the stats. Something like that. Groundsin. Y'all know my stance on Groundsin. I never skip Groundsin if I see it. It's just so much a guaranteed top 4. And just very chill and just very chill Archdemon to play because you can kind of do whatever you want. Similar to 10-foot in that regard. You're not going to lose any early fights. As long as you're making sure to just, buy units, don't be greedy and start rolling and not buying things. Just buy units, you're guaranteed to pretty much win fights. You have so many stats on the board, it's just mathematically impossible to lose those fights unless you run into like a higher rolling morgue or something. And Guardian Zoe is definitely busted. I think probably could be the contender currently for top Archdemon in the game is Guardian Zoe. Now, it's still not unbeatable, right? It's just very strong at all points of the game. I would say that, obviously early game it has some of the best tempo. If they were to nerf it, I think a good start would just be to take off the scaling from barrier. Simply having a barrier in slot 4 is a very strong thing, but giving the 1/1 scaling, I think probably tips it over the edge. But yeah, Guardian Zoe, I mean, what can you say about it? You'll probably win all your early fights, and unlike something like a Groundsin even, right? Groundsin has late game benefit, but it's not nearly as good of late game benefit as something like a Zoe, I would say. You can, if you're against a Zoe, I will say, here's what I will say. I have had some lobbies, technically if everybody runs Iron Ogre in slot 1, which I've seen, you're not that good. I will say that. Like, it is actually, like, if the whole lobby kind of gets on board with, hey, Zoe's here, have an Iron Ogre ready to go for him, that's not a bad strategy if you see a Zoe in your lobby. I wouldn't say Zoe is actually the top hero if people kind of get on board with that. So I'll be interested in the tournament to see if Zoe actually is like a top performing Archdemon. I predict he actually won't be. I think he's just good in the general lobbies. I think he'll still be very good, but I still think in the tournament I would pick a Groundsin over Zoe. I think Groundsin can't really be countered, but a Zoe can. And Jacko is cursed. I had by far my most ISP frickin' unplanned maintenance disconnects with Jacko. So what I will say is I got top 4 with him every time. Those 3 do not count. I literally got disconnected at the start of the game. And I even should have a few more wins, but I will say Jacko's very hard to win with. I still like him. I think he's very fun to play. I think there's a ceiling of skill there that I haven't even scratched the surface of, even in the 26 games I've played. And is he top tier? I don't know. I kind of feel like he will be in the tournament, because I think levels 2 and 3 are going to be so important, and Jacko is one of the best level 2 and 3 Archdemons. The problem is, Jacko is not an Archdemon that you just pick up without having experience. You're not gonna. That's, I guess, my that's kind of my thing. I'm like, not many people play Jacko, and if they think they're gonna just pick him up for the tournament without having played him much, they're gonna be in it for a rude awakening. He's really not. He's one of the harder heroes to play. There's so many nuances. I could do like an entire like hour-long guide on Jacko on what I've learned so far, and I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of how to play Jacko. I think Jacko is just a very well-designed Archdemon in what it brings to the table and what you can do with it, but still have a lot to learn with Jacko. Jacko is still my pet project. Lars will be an interesting one. I have had a lot of Lars games where I am like, you know, the bottom fours here were legit games. They were not disconnects. So I had 2 legitimate bottom fours, and I had a bunch of games. Even, it's, you know, I didn't record it, but the game that got me to 10,000 was a Lars game, and I nearly got 6th place. I was just about there, and I had to cast Sacrifice on 6 costs on my bench. 2 fights in a row to even survive, and then I ended up winning just because I was able to turn the corner. But like, that's kind of how I wonder if Lars will actually not be good in the tournament. Especially like if you don't find an early mana pest. You know, rats I guess would be your other option, but that's not like that strong, I would say, to get double summon on rats. And then you're basically dead in the water until Flambar. You could always miss on a Flambar, and also you could miss on an Arcane Offering, which severely limits how good Flambar is. And then obviously there's Babam, but I'm even back and forth on if Babam is even that good of a tempo play, because I don't know if it's by design or if it's a bug, but like a lot of times those extra Babam hits just don't go anywhere. Like if a unit already died, the shot often goes to the dead unit, which is obviously a wasted proc. So it's like, are you even getting much out of Babam from Lars when you play it on tempo, you know, on curve? Often I say no. Kind of just wastes the proc, and I've gone to not even fielding magic units in front of my bomb through the levels, you know, level 4 and whatnot, because I just rather have the Flambar give it some stats and know that I can't, and know that I won't waste those procs, those double procs. Morga, I didn't get to 10, but my thoughts on Morga is I don't really think he's as good as people say. Granted, maybe I could play him more and maybe the variants will shake out, but I don't know. I feel like, to me, Morga is similar to Baron, but I'd just rather have Baron. You know, 6/6 is obviously great stats, but I generally think getting an artifact ahead of the curve is better. They're the exact same hero, though, if you think about it. Like, they're completely reliant on getting triples, and if they miss on that, which is possible, they don't actually get that early game benefit that you're looking to get from them. You'll eventually get them, but you can miss on it through the whole level 2. I've had it happen on both. It just kind of sucks. Orbis will be interesting. I do think Orbis is probably good on average. I'd still be scared as hell to pick him into the tournament, though. Yeah, I would shy away from it if I could. Syracles is interesting. I don't think he's actually that good. I think the old version of Demons ran him pretty well when you could get an earlier Hellfire Cannon, but I don't know, you can get good tempo early with a Rat or a Vampling, and a Shark is obviously good with it, but like, I don't know. I think the haste is a bit overrated, and the damage quickly falls off. The extra 6 damage, it's only relevant for like 2 levels, I'd say. And the Stunning Strike is completely irrelevant almost all the time. The only time a Stunning Strike I think could actually be okay is on like a ranged unit in slot 5. There's weird scenarios where that could be good, but for the most part the Stunning Strike is irrelevant, I would say. Sometimes it even works against you. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not that sold on a Syracles. Like, it's good tempo for the first 2 levels, but I think to me, a good tempo champ is good through level 3. Level 3 is a very important level. That's where you're going to lose a lot of HP if you're not actually good. And Asiricles just doesn't have it through that level, in my opinion. Like, yeah, you could even run like Underguardsman and stuff, but I don't know. It's pretty easy. Like, Underguardsman, as long as Warden is available, like Bucky pretty much hard counters it. Even an Automata can hard counter him. I don't know. Then the rat champs, they are what they are. I think I would pick especially Rattiness in the tournament, even though I don't like playing him on a ladder because he's really boring to me. Certainly is a strong champ. Maybe hard to win with, but you don't really need to win in the tournament. You just need to get top like 2 or 3, and Rattiness excels at that. I would definitely have Rattiness on my radar if I was in the tournament. And I think I've determined I don't like Rockwah. I mean, I like Rockwah, but I don't actually think Rockwah is that great. I think that unless you really high roll promotions or Mana Guardian or an Eminat early, it's an it quickly becomes an anti hero power, I think, in a lot of cases. A lot of times you just get some good scaling unit and you don't want it to have tank. Or alternatively, you have a unit that has tank and you don't want to field it anymore and you just throw away all of those stats that you gained if you can't find a promotion. So then you play this weird game of like, well, do I just waste these stats that I gained because this unit sucks that I have, right? So Rockwah is just very awkward. Huntress I'll still play from time to time. I still find her fun to play. I would not... Well, it's a lie. I probably would play her in the tournament just on principle, but if I were you, I wouldn't. I just have to do it because it's like, you know, that's my thing, Scarlet Huntress. It's you can't. It's like, you know, if you're like a sports team or whatnot. Like, you got your home team. Scarlet Huntress is my home team. This is a down year for Scarlet Huntress. You know, this is a rebuilding year, but you don't just abandon your team. You don't sell off your jersey just because they're having a down year. You know, Scarlet will be back, and we'll have stuck by her side through that. But for the record, I probably wouldn't recommend you play Scarlet Huntress through the tournament. However, I will root for you on principle if you do. And Silverbeak, I think, is great. This is an Archdemon I'd play a lot more. I just think I wasn't really offered it that much, but I would say Silverbeak is very, very good. You know, and also similar to Jacko, it's not obviously nearly as hard as Jacko, but I think people underestimate that Silverbeak actually isn't that easy to play. There is a learning curve with Silverbeak. It's also another one, if you don't have any Silverbeak games under your belt and you go into this tournament and you're like, okay, Silverbeak, tempo champ, right? I'll pick him. You might not actually do that good because you won't understand how to navigate it. It's actually not that easy to navigate all the time. You have to really know when to go for a triple, and also when to rotate your board. It's like you get a ton of benefit from having doubles on your board, and most early game treasures are not going to be better than what your Archdemon power is. So I would definitely try to get... It's easier to learn than Jacko, though, so if you see Silverbeak, I would force yourself to play it between now and then, because it's going to be a very good tournament hero, I would say. Yeah, and let's see, 10 foot. 10 foot I just love playing. High top 4 rate, obviously, 35 out of 35, and 23 wins is no slight. Like, it's actually pretty okay to win with, too, right? You know, you can look at the difference between somebody like Jacko and 10 foot. I obviously have a lot harder time winning with a Jacko, but a 10 foot, you know, I talked about it a little bit, but it's like, you don't need to go any specific thing with 10 foot. You just need to put units down and you're already good. You know, similar to Groundson, don't just go rolling early because you're greedily trying to find a specific unit. Like, just put units down, you'll win every fight, and then start speculating on your end game, right? Or your mid to end game. So maybe pick up some Mind Sappers and start throwing stats on them, or maybe start just picking up some 6 costs and try to get some 6 cost treasures. You know, stuff like that. Yeah, and a lot of times with 10 foot's just, it's just a game of like survive till level 5 and then try to pick up 6-cost treasures, or alternatively just survive till level 6 and start picking up knowledge fiends and just plop them down, because they'll have enough health that they're not going to die to eruption, and you can just counter the big greener boards or whatnot, right? And Baron, I will say, had some disconnects, but I still think Baron is quite good. I think it is susceptible to some blowouts, so it's not on the level of like a 10-foot or a Groundson or a Silverbeak for me, even as a tournament hero, but I think that Baron... I also think that the actual win rate of Baron here is a little misleading. Like, I just know the context. I've had some very close second place games with Baron that really could have gone either way. I think that Baron is actually a pretty good hero to win first place with. It just, for whatever reason, didn't happen with me in a lot of them. But, I do think of it as a tempo champ. I think a lot of people miss that. It's, like I said, it's the same thing as Morg. You need to get early combinations, and I will say this, it's kind of the opposite of something like 10 foot or Silverbeak, or Groundson. Silverbeak, I guess, maybe is even more so along the lines of Baron and Morg, but it's like, you can probably justify rolling early to try to get units combined, or even doubles, because it is that important to make use of your Archdemon power. If you're not making use of it early, then that's a big whiff. But I also highly recommend that you skew toward non-greedy early artifacts. So like an owlbear traps is a great pickup for Baron early on, and then try to get maybe like some rat resummons would be good, or even like safety helm's also a good pickup. If you can combine like a safety helm and a rat trap or an owlbear trap, the nice thing about those summons is like, even if they don't come back strong, even if they don't have like a fire elemental giving them stats, the unit that follows up and attacks it will take that owlbear trap, and that might just be enough to finish it off. And that, I suppose, is the extent of the units I have thoughts on. Everything else, it's like I could comment on things like Zeroth are all-seeing. Like, I can tell you I don't predict that they would be good in the tournament, but again, I didn't play them enough to have a super informed opinion on them. Like, I've just had bad experiences with them to the extent that I didn't want to play them anymore. It's very possible that they might be okay. Same with like Brotusk. I just had some horrible games of Brotusk and I just swore them off, and maybe I'll give them a chance again. But yeah, good luck to everybody in the tournament. I'll be casting it on Sunday. I might even be able to record a few of the preliminary games. I do plan on it. I'll have to double check that I'm even allowed to do that, so don't quote me on that. But if I am allowed to do it, I will definitely try to catch some of those games and spectate them. So yeah. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.